All right. Hello, everyone. Just some last minute fun here with OBS. I think I had that issue in the past, but the camera was kind of misbehaving, wrongly shaped and whatnot. So just had that happen just now again. But anyway, I think I got it mostly behaving. And I don't think it's exactly where it used to be. I think it used to be actually aligned more like this. A bit more down, actually. Just fixing that stuff real quick here. Maybe. Yeah, it looks plausibly aligned. So, yeah, let's try something like that. Anyway, some last minute fun on that front. But yeah, welcome everyone to another IncusOS live stream. As the title implies, we're going to be doing more CLI type stuff today rather than messing with the backend of IncusOS itself. But I'm still going to go through everything that happened since last week. So let's see. All right. So, changes since we last did a live stream. So it was on the 9th. So let's look for any changes since then. Just reminding myself what I did. There was some OS backup stuff that landed on that day. Yeah, I mean, last week was mostly a demo. So there's a bunch of changes that landed right around then. I think that did just before the live stream, and then the rest of those changes are afterwards. All right, so let's start from there. What did we do? So there's a new API to directly modify the get information and modify the provider. So that allows effectively enrolling an existing IncusOS system into Operation Center. That kind of avoids like a chicken and egg thing if you want, say, Operation Center to get its updates through Operation Center itself. So that was that feature. OS backup, I think I showed that it was being worked on. Now it's done. So we've got an API to actually fetch a full backup of the OS config and restore it in place. And some kind of smaller fixes around the rest of the code base on that day. All right, then we cleaned up the seed struct a tiny bit for Operation Center and Migration Manager, mostly aligning the structure with what we do on the Incus side of things. So just making things more consistent, also makes it easier for the download option in both the IncusOS customizer, so the IncusOS download website, as well as when you download through Operation Center. So that thing improved logging a bit around network configs. There was a bit of an issue there with the way device renaming was handled in some situations, which wasn't working correctly for renames happening after initial system boot. And the logging in that scenario was not ideal. So we've kind of fixed both of those. And then some more tweaks on how to do the factory reset, which effectively now means we get to keep the seed data that's already on the system for most factory resets, and then have the option to provide different seed data if it's useful. We also added an option to skip TPM reset failures, as we've seen that on some physical servers. All right, what else do we have here? So that's earlier this week at this point. We had one issue with Operation Center. I actually showed that, I think, in the last stream last week, where when you create a new VM that was running Operation Center, it would start downloading updates and then immediately kind of get stuck with those updates, and you need to clean them up and refresh. That's because we had an incorrect restart call within the IncusOS logic. So we tracked it down and we removed it. So that fixes that. I've been running IncusOS on physical machines here as well, ahead of another video I'm recording tomorrow. And those machines have a USB NIC exposed by their baseboard management controller, so that BMC. And those USB NICs had a name that's too long for IncusOS to handle. It was causing some issues, so we've put a workaround in place for those kind of internal management NICs. Also ran into an issue with a more complex network using VRRP gateways that was running into some issue with the answers from ARP packets that we were sending out from IncusOS. Effectively, we had multiple NICs up, and we would occasionally respond from the wrong one to ARP packets, making other systems learn the wrong MAC address. So fix that by configuring the kernel correctly now, so that it doesn't do that anymore. Then a bit more tweaking to logging. Effectively, we're doing a bunch of work now on automated testing, and it's therefore very useful for us to have clear logs that we can use to check what happened during some specific actions. And basically, some of the requirement checks that happened early on in IncusOS weren't resulting in log messages. We've not fixed that. And then there was a small issue with the pre-seed reshuffle that needed fixing. I did that last night. And that's basically for the state of IncusOS right now. We've also seen more people start using it, which is great to see. We've got a few more. Most of the issues we have open at this point are really towards making this like a full GA thing that we're happy for everyone to start consuming. Like we have customers actively running this, that works perfectly fine. Like they effectively consume it as hypervisor OS through Feature Fusion. But that's a more controlled environment on hardware that we know, that we've tested, that we've validated. For us to go full GA on IncusOS, that's gonna mean supporting a lot more of like a lot wider variety of hardware and configurations. So we're trying to make sure that we've kind of ticked all of the right boxes around that. So there's a few more things kind of in the way of that. One big one is kind of documentation. So we've got like an issue tracking the expected structure for the whole documentation for the project. So we can start writing missing data, also changing the Sphinx documentation structure to kind of line up with that. I spent some time yesterday getting IncusOS, specifically Operation Center, running on top of VMware, as that's pretty common for our customers to want. And I got it working. The VMware UEFI secure boot handling was a bit interesting to sort out, but I got it done, and effectively, yeah, we got some screenshots of creating a VM, tweaking importing the right file, starting it up, and then it actually does install correctly. Same thing as it would on top of Incus. So that's pretty good. That's another thing. Like we want to have documentation on how to install on bare metal, on top of Incus, on top of VMware, and probably on top of Proxmox in the instructions. We really want most folks to run IncusOS with Incus on top of bare metal. That's kind of the goal. But for some of the other applications like Migration Manager, like Operation Center, it's going to be running mostly virtualized. So those instructions make sense. A few more tweaks so that we can select exactly what update channel that we want. We currently push at both stable and testing builds, so it will allow people switching from one to the other. So just a bit of tweaking we need to do there. This one is the one we're going to be doing today. Relaxed network requirements, so that we've had the discussion around that. Basically, it's to avoid a chicken and egg issue where someone runs their router as a VM or as a container running on top of Incus, on top of IncusOS, and then the system failing to start because it can't get DNS or NTP until the container its hosting has started. So the idea is to basically be pretty strict on network like we are right now on initial boot and when dealing with a network config update, but be more relaxed on subsequent boot, so that if the system at startup can't talk to its DNS server, we don't treat that as like a fatal failure that requires like a full restart of the network stack. We move on and hope it gets resolved later as the rest of the system starts up. So there's that change coming up soon. Also still part of kind of pushing out GA build, we need to have more tooling around generating proper manifests and change logs. makeOSI gives us a manifest for each artifact, which is convenient, but it doesn't understand artifact kind of dependency and structure. So it will list the same packages multiple times, which is wrong. And it doesn't track things that are not packages. So it's missing a bunch of the stuff we inject in the images. So we're going to be kind of expanding on the existing makeOSI manifest, make sure we include that in our build, have tooling that can then take those manifests and generate basic change logs. So we can at least publish, like, if you're updating from this image and going to this image, those packages have changed from this version to that version. That would then typically be consumed by the team, for example, at Future Fusion, that pushes out the customer build to actually assign a security severity to the update and write a more user-friendly version of the changelog, but that will provide for all of the automated builds at least a reasonable initial changelog that can then be expanded further by human beings. All right, API and regression testing, that's being worked right now. There's actually a pull request was open a few minutes ago that effectively adds some Python scripting around IncusOS and some of the APIs to create a bunch of VMs on Incus and then test a whole bunch of features to test the API, test some of the features like backups, restore, all that kind of stuff. So we're putting that in place. I think I already touched on that one last week, but we're looking at making it possible to run without a physical TPM 2.0 module by instead spawning a software one that's backed by something like a USB stick or something like that. And that should make it possible to run IncusOS on platforms that have functional secure root, but no physical TPM. ARM64 boards, like development boards and consumer type systems come to mind there, as they tend to lack a TPM module. There will still be a bit of restrictions, like it will be treated as being less secure. It might not allow you to enroll in a person center and some other things, but it will at least make it possible to install and run Incus on those systems. The OpenFG application is still a work in progress, mostly about getting the Postgres database up and running. And we've got some work still around versioning and rollback of individual applications, and then some more stuff on documentation and some kind of wish list, smaller items. So anyway, making some pretty good progress on that. Like, I don't really have a clear timeline for when we'll be doing like a big push on IncusOS being like fully like GA being like available to everyone and really pushing for folks to try it. But we're definitely getting pretty close. I mean, the documentation is the biggest thing we want to have in place and polish really before that can happen. Otherwise, as far as the builds and everything, we build IncusOS several times every week. We have at least one stable build to pick up the new kernel updates. And yeah, in general, we've had a pretty solid experience lately. All right, so that's the state of IncusOS. Now to look at what we'll actually be working on today, and it's the CLI. So let me actually get a terminal up there. Okay, so if we go look at the Incus codebase, I think it's up to date already. Not, okay, there we go. So if we build that, and then we can get the IncusOS codebase down here. Here we go. Okay. So what we have today is, come on, just waiting for this build to complete. Might be a new Go version or something. It's taking longer than expected. Anyways, so we do have an Incus admin OS command that then has some subcommands around application debug, service and system to just give us like some basic overview. So we can list the applications like on an IncusOS box. There you go. There's Incus on it. We can do the same thing with the services, and there's currently no way to list systems. It's actually something we should add, but we can do show network or something like that and get it that way. So that's kind of the basics. I've done since some improvements to things like the debug, so the logging function. So we can directly do like units, Incus, and just filter the units, say when you want to see the current boot or want to see the previous boot. Like, that works all pretty well. But now there's a few things we want to sort out. One I just showed is there's currently no way to list the system endpoints. So that should be a very easy one to add since we've added the API for it now. And then there's a bit of restructuring I want to do. Like right now, all of that, it's wrong code base. It's currently all in CMD, Incus, admin, OS. That's where everything is right now. And that worked well for our first part, but as mentioned, we now have also Operation Center and Migration Manager. They both also have their CLI, and they can both also run as the only application on top of IncusOS. So when you're running those, you don't really have a way to manage the system anymore, which is not exactly ideal. So the idea is to move that code into a package within the IncusOS code base, and then make it possible for the different projects to import that package into their code base and effectively get the CLI embedded that way. That means we get to have a consistent CLI across effectively all three projects when it comes to running in IncusOS. And it also means that IncusOS will have its CLI code directly in its own code base, making it kind of easier to follow and update. So that's the general idea. And on top of that, so I mentioned the list command for services, for system. And we also standardized a whole bunch of API routes for actions. So I think if we look for maybe slash semicolon in IncusOS, the internal rest, something like that. Yeah, there we go. So that gives us all of the actions. We can see we've got the action for creating a backup of an application, factory resetting an application, restoring an application, an internal route for writing just a message on screen, then a bunch of system actions for, again, backup, restore, factory reset, as well as powering off and rebooting the system. On the security side, we have an option to rebind the TPM. So that's basically if you had to enter a recovery key because the TPM state has changed, you can call that to re-enroll the current state as being normal, so you don't need to enter the recovery key again. On the storage side, we support wiping drives, deleting pools, and importing a specific encryption key for pool we're importing. And then we also have an option for to check for updates directly. So all of those kind of need their commands. So that's something else that will need to be done. Probably won't happen in this live stream. I don't think I can really do that in 40 minutes. But I think realistically for this live stream, I should be able to add the system list command and then look at moving the code into a separate Go package. Probably initially just doing that inside of the Incus code base to make it easy to kind of reshuffle things around. And then once importing that package into the CLI works correctly, that package will be moved to the IncusOS code base instead, and we'll import the package from there. All right, so let's get going. I said the first thing we need to do is add a new system list command. So that's pretty easy. We're just gonna go and pick the application list command that we have here. And we'll just duplicate that as system list. So it's this chunk. And now we need to go look where the system stuff is, down here, system edit. So it's gonna go after edit. I'm gonna do alphabetical ordering here. So let's go and put it here. And then we just need to replace anything that says application with system. Okay. And let's do another pass with we do anything that says application lowercase with system. And actually applications, I think, because we want to catch the API. Yeah, there we go. Okay. And then just scan through the code, see if it makes sense. So global admin OS is fine. System list system. What did we call them again? Sections. Okay, did we call them configuration sections? Yeah, configuration sections. So list system configuration sections. Formatting and stuff is fine. List, okay, system, we support target, and we show the name for the sections. That's good. Yeah, that should be okay. So now we just need the other bit of plumbing, which is okay, so that system itself. Now the system edit. System service show. Where is system? Service show. Oh, it's here. Okay. So just need to add the actual command to the list. And like part of making a new package too, we're gonna have to see if we can't do something about some of the boilerplate around that. Like a bunch of those commands are very, very similar. So if we can have like a wrapper for just, I need like get me and a show, edit, or list command, and we're just gonna pass what endpoint we want and the command description and save ourselves a whole bunch of duplication that we kind of need. So that's kind of part of also the idea behind the reshuffling, is to try and see if we can't fix that. Okay, so that's built. Incus admin OS system list laptop. Does that work? Yep, works fine. Cool. So that part added. That was easy enough. Just okay. Cool. So we got that one sorted. Now for the more complex part of trying to split all of that into its own package. So what we would effectively do, we'll just call it IncusOS CMD, because I think the package is gonna be called CMD, so that way we can name everything correctly already. And then we're gonna want to just move the entire thing. So admin OS inside there. Package becomes CMD, and what we're gonna need is to have kind of that endpoint. So it needs to be able to get a new command and get the structure kind of back out of it. Part of the issue is going to be the global stuff. It won't be able to straight up access it because that's not an exported thing. Do we actually use the global stuff anywhere? Like we do pass it around, that's for sure, but do we actually rely on it? Yeah, so the list uses that for the default list format, so I need to get that information somehow. This one uses the config for like the remote, so there's some more logic around that. So that's where there's going to be like a bunch of kind of plumbing needed to make this work. Like, I think the general idea is that we want an entry point, which is like, a new command or something else that can be called, and then specific data can be passed through. So we're going to need to be provided like the default list format. That's one of those things we're going to need. So that might be part of a struct, and then we're going to need a mechanism for kind of what we see here, getting a connection or being able to make a query effectively against a particular server, which would then can handle the raw query thing. We also need to handle the case of, hey, I want a specific target. That's only a thing with Incus, not with others, but it does kind of impact us there to an extent. And I'm just trying to figure out. Yeah, so I think it's going to be like a pretty rough first pass in this live stream. They're going to see what we can do afterwards. So let's just keep that file as it is for now and do like a loader thing. So command, and what we want here is func new new command, and we just want like a list of arguments basically. So this is like an arg struct. Not sure about the naming exactly, but that's probably as good as that gets. And then we need to return something that can be included. So that's effectively a Cobra command we need to return as something that can be embedded by the parent. So we want that, and returning an error. Okay, and then we need to actually import the SPF13 Cobra package as well. So we can do that. There we go. And then we need to actually define what's in that arg struct. So that's going to be kind of a slightly more complex thing. So there's a default list format thing that we need to pass. Then like this will effectively return an entire CLI structure, which makes it slightly weird for some of the extra things, like I can get back to the targeting stuff being kind of problematic, because that only gets passed. Yeah, I guess we'll probably need to do is something like supports target bool, and if it does, then the -- target flag is added. If not, we're not. So that's probably the easiest way to handle that. So we'll do that, and we will need to effectively have something we can call to make an API call. So that's basically if I go look at some of the other pieces in there, so IncusOS, SIM, admin.os. Like we make those calls, I think typically to raw query everywhere in here, and that's what's kind of needs to be handled for us. So we need to have something that we can do a raw query, pass a remote name typically, and then the URL we expect, and it should do the query for us. That's kind of the idea. So that will take over the kind of remote parsing piece, like we would effectively pass a remote name that we want, and pass the method URL that we want, data, and then we expect a API response back. So let's add that in here. And we could, in theory, have a fallback to our own, just like hitting a local endpoint or something else. But so query handler, let's call it something else. And this is a function that needs. It's going to be passed a remote name. It's going to be passed a method. It's going to be passed a URI. It's going to be passed like a post data. What's the signature on raw query? Is it's just any? Yeah, data is any. And an e tag, like an optional e tag. Okay, it's gonna look like that, and the response is effectively this. So that means Yeah, so that's gonna work for the Incus case. I'm just thinking, looking at this, like API.response might be a tricky one because Migration Manager and Operation Center, I don't think straight up use the normal Incus API response in their code. We're gonna go check that real quick. Fusion Migration Manager. Okay, where would that be? Is there like a such a thing as like a raw query in there? Not really. So command Migration Manager itself, so it's the CLI. CLI just puts the general structure in place. Okay, the commands. So let's say we just want, what would be a simple one, like a batch list or something like that? What does that look like? Or batch show, I guess. Batch show, it does global, do HTTP, whatever. And yeah, then it's got its own thing, and it does, like it's never returning an API response really. So we might need to abstract things further. Let me check what we can do. Like the question is kind of what do we do with those responses in the current code. So every time we do a raw query, effectively what do? We do metadata as string slice or metadata as something. So we could re-implement that easily enough. So we might just want like the actual raw data, as in we expect like an HTTP response instead of doing any of the unpacking and error handling and stuff outside of this code base. That might be the way to go, because then it can be easily implemented by anything. Yeah, that might be the way to go. Like this is very convenient for us, just being able to do like doing the unpacking this way, but I don't think it will necessarily work for all of the downstream stuff that we do have. Yeah, let me check exactly what we do with raw query in here. Okay, so that handles the URL. Because I think we can also get just a simple kind of HTTP handler instead out of the client, and then just use that to do a basic HTTP request, which I think is what we do in the query command. Like it tries to do a raw query. If that doesn't work, it then does an HTTP new request. And it sends that using do HTTP. So that's kind of that might be the actual abstraction that we need, is just give me a way to do an HTTP query against whatever remote. And then we can handle the rest from that package. It's not really ideal, but that might actually work out for us, because it might let us use some of the Incus API logic to still do the unpacking afterwards. So I think we need a do HTTP type command in the args struct instead of something more complex. So do HTTP, what does it do? As far as signature, it takes an HTTP request and gives us a response and error. So that's what we're going to be putting in here instead of something more complex. Okay, so that's kind of what that looks like, but we do need to pass an extra thing here, which is the remote name. So yeah, we'd effectively want a function where we can pass it what remote we're dealing with, and then an HTTP request, and it gives us an HTTP response. So that's the idea for this one. And effectively, we need to make the rest of that package now build around that concept. Okay, let's see just how much of a mess we've made. I'm pretty sure if I look at IncusOS CMD, it's going to be very, very, very unhappy right now. And indeed it is. Yeah, all of the CMD global stuff would kind of need to go away. Instead, we'll have our own internal struct that we'll be using here. And we might still call it CMD global just to make things easier, actually. But then have that return effectively the comments that we do need. Okay, what was the... Like my goal at this point for this stream is just have something that builds at all. That'd be nice. Okay, so we need to get this command. So cmd admin OS, that's what we would want. And then it needs kind of a global struct to be instantiated. We might as well implement one of those with effectively the flags from above. So CMD global kind of turns into the arg struct to an extent. Okay, so let's make it so the... I'm trying to save that, okay. So CMD, this guy. Okay. And then basically need to return cmd.command. And then the arg stuff is effectively used to set up that internal global struct. And so global turns into something like this. Like if it turns into the exact arg struct, we really don't need that. And I think it kind of is. Yeah, it does. Okay, let's just turn that into passing it the args struct itself and just fix all the commands to not need more than that. Okay, so that's gonna obviously still be very unhappy. Okay, so that doesn't exist anymore. It's just args like that, which is gonna cause other problems, but this one at least is gone. Now load.go is missing an import for HTTP, so I'm gonna go and fix that. Like this. Okay, and then, okay, so everywhere we've got the CMD global stuff, we're gonna go and put args instead. I also don't know why we actually have both, because it can get to the parent command, so we don't need that strictly, actually. Just go, this one is needed, but then because this one changes to the previous one, it doesn't need any of that, so we can get away with just removing them all. And then for the few that do need something out of it, we'll just grab it from the parent. Okay. All right, so that's a bit of progress. Now, yeah, this should be args, not CMD global, like that. Okay. And then this uses a function called usage to kind of do some mangling, I guess. Let's see. Like one thing we won't be able to really do is the kind of translation stuff. Usage, okay, name and args. So if we pass multiple args, then it concatenates things. Okay, how is usage used right now inside of the command we're dealing with? Okay, it does pass multiple things. Okay, so we do need to just copy this command. So we'll just have our own utils.go in here and just put that on there. That's fine. That should resolve that particular problem. Okay, now it's complaining about more global stuff, which makes sense. So it passes global kind of everywhere, and we really don't need it to do that. So anywhere we are doing both global and OS, I only want OS. There. Okay, that's a bit better. Now, this one uses global for the default list format, so that needs to be changed. This entire chunk needs to become c.os.args.default list format. Okay. Not sure if that's what it's named in load. No, it's capitalized because it's exported. Okay. Let's just go back. Not here. Go back. Come on. Admin OS, yes. So default list format is actually default list format. So okay, still a bunch of global stuff, but the list format stuff is gone. Date layout second, that's something that we have again in utils over here, I think. Yeah, they're defined here. So let's pull those over to our other utils. So that will sort out this one. Okay, more global stuff. Cool. So let's go look at that. Admin OS line 118. What's going on here? Okay, yeah, so it's trying to get the config for the remote. So that part's not gonna work very well. Mostly because we need to use the do HTTP stuff. So okay. And then the follow-up, like calling global check args, that's not gonna work either. Why is check args on global and not a standalone command? I don't actually remember. Let's see. Because that feels like something we should just put in utils, but maybe there was a reason to put it where it is in the Incus codebase. Let's see. Does it use C anywhere in there? No, it does not. Okay, so that's one of those functions that is on the main command mostly out of convenience, but not for any good reason. So it can just go in here as another helper we're gonna need. So let's check args. Like so far, none of that is like complex enough or big enough to really justify moving them to to a shared package or anything. I'm changing the coding style also as we go, just to line it up with what we expect in IncusOS, because this is gonna be moved to the IncusOS code base, so it needs to line up with those standards. Okay, still have that one. So every time we do this guy, we now want to do that instead. Okay. So it's still failing quite miserably everywhere, but you know, getting there. There's a missing import in utils for Cobra. I need to fix that. Okay. Alright. now more global stuff kind of everywhere. Let's try and tackle one of those, I guess. So I said we need to figure out the remote name. That's fine, we have it here. The quick checks is fine, so this can go away. And then here we're figuring out the URL we want to hit. That's fine. And that's where the thing would be a bit different. And I think we kind of need to have like an internal function within like probably utils to do some of the abstraction. So do query effectively. We need to pass. Actually, that should probably be on the okay, so we've got args as the client thing. Yeah, I can just do it like that. Okay, so do query, and then I need to pass that either all of the args, which I don't really need. The main thing I need to do HTTP from the args. So args dot do HTTP. So we need the HTTP client that way. And then we need the remote name, then the function, and the API, and then it would respond. It will return the stuff we need. Okay, so something along those lines. All right, and the flag target thing also needs to handle actually, just so it's there. So flag target, we have. Where it is? Okay, there we go. So CMD flags target something. So we need to do if c.os.args and was it like support targets or something? I don't remember what I called it now. Support target, yeah. So we only want the CLI option for targeting to be there if it supports target. Okay, then looks for the other ones that do the same thing. So flags, flag target. There should be a bunch. Yeah, bingo, there's one here. I need to also undo all of the translation stuff because we don't support translation within the IncusOS codebase. That's something we might need to look at later to see if there's a better way to reintegrate that with Incus, but the Incus CLI translations are pretty limited anyways. Because like it imports this from Incus, but that's not really viable. So itn.g should kind of go away. I might need to do every one of them one by one because it's not the indentation and everything might be causing us some fun. Okay. Let's just clean up some stuff like here. Hopefully it won't take too long to sort out this stuff. There wasn't exactly much in the way of translated messages in the first place. So. CLI format, okay, so that's export. And format section in CLI, that's an internal package. Okay, we're gonna need to deal with that one too, because that won't be accessible. Okay, this one is at least externally accessible, it's in shared, so we're good. But yeah, there's more kind of dependencies to clean up. And then as mentioned, I want to spend a bit of time kind of cleaning things up so that we don't have so much code duplication as we do right now. Okay, so what's going on with this one? Format and... Alright, there's like some stuff that need to be escaped in here, so no header. like that. Share. And we need the double tick thing at the end because of weird escaping stuff. Okay. Let's just copy paste that one everywhere needed because that's gonna be too annoying otherwise. Okay, I think that's it for the lists. Now let's keep going with those. It would have been nice if there were no line breaks and stuff, then I could have just done all of that through basically a sed, like a regex run across the code base, but we're not so lucky. So anyways, okay, that should be fine. I also see a bunch of things that we'll need, like the errors, capitalization is different with the IncusOS codebase. I need to fix that too. But yeah, generally kind of getting there. So that's the debug command here. Like how many do I still have? 18n.g, IncusOS, cmd, and mainOS. Okay, it's not so bad. I got 40 left to sort out. That weird workaround with the backticks is kind of weird. It's effectively to hide, I believe, the default value from Cobra. Otherwise, we had some issues with like it showing some confusing help messages. So it's a workaround we found a long time ago in the Incus code base that was just kind of applied everywhere. Okay. It might have been a better idea to kind of do the refactoring first to limit all of the duplication and then just have to do this particular change probably just a quarter of the number of times I'm doing right now. But anyways, so like there's not that many of them that it's undoable. It's just a bit tedious. Oops. And so anyway, getting there. Now, what's going on with this one? It's just a weird formatting one. Okay. This one is actually multi-line, so we need to keep it like that. How many am I here? Okay, so I did 11 out of the 40. Getting there, getting there. Okay, so those are like error messages. Sure. Okay, we can simplify that one a bit like that. Okay. Sure, that should be fine. Next. All right. Let's do lists, aliases. That's good. Name. And then this guy. Then I'm gonna have to figure out what typos I just made by doing all of those changes, because there's bound to be something I messed up. Like some brackets I closed or forgot to close or something. Like, I mean, just like here, this is almost broke down. Okay. And this guy, like this. So that's another example here. Okay. Yeah, this one. Okay, sure. That. We did one of those earlier too, so that's that. Okay, and then this guy here. Again, very tedious, very repetitive, but should be getting there. The upside, anyone watching the recording afterwards, you can just skip ahead. I wish I could do that with this work, that'd be nice. How many? 5 more, yay, okay. That will make it a bit easier to work with the code. It's all of those translation wrappers are quite annoying at times. Like they make total sense when we actually do support translations, but since we don't really on the IncusOS code base, that will make things a lot less annoying. Okay, so that's all of them gone now. Let's try to build this thing. Yeah, okay, so now we're gonna go and fix the ones I messed up. This has like an extra parenthesis there. Okay, a bunch of CLI stuff. Okay, so I didn't mess too many up, looks like. Now CLI stuff, CLI format section. Okay, so we don't have that. That's in internal import on the Incus side. So we might need to go and steal it. Format section. Does it do something simple or is it complex? Okay, it's not particularly complex. Because there's an option to like some of the internal stuff that we have, like render table and whatnot. Like we have I believe we have a external comment thing, don't we? Okay, we've got CLI config, that's external, but not much more. Okay, I thought we had more external facing CMD stuff we could just put in, but I guess not. Okay. Anyways, for now, I'll just copy paste the function and we can work on deduplicating some of that stuff later. And basically, utils will be all the stuff I've stolen from Incus. And later on, we can either export those if that becomes too problematic, or if we find a file that doesn't have too many things, which I can just keep it like that. Alright. Like they're not functions that change particularly often, so I'm not too worried about it, but where's my other terminal here? Okay. So CLI format section turns into just format section. It's fine. Okay, we still have some CLI stuff. And which ones are validate flag format for list output. So that's the format stuff. Okay. What does that do in life? I think there's probably some more CLI stuff. I'm guessing render table is also being called. sort columns naturally, render table, there's a whole bunch of stuff there. Okay. Starting to look more and more like we really have to just make the internal CMD package not be internal anymore. Cancelable weight, that seems potentially useful. Formatting, it's the format section. Progress, renderer. Okay. What else do we have? Sorted stuff. Okay, test for that, and then the table rendering itself. Yeah, okay, fine. So let me actually undo that change. Going back to utils, format section here can go away. I'm tempted to actually move. Yeah, let's do it cleanly. Fine. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is moving internal CMD to shared CMD. Then commit that, so shared /CMD, move from internal CMD. Okay, now we need, actually I shouldn't delete this guy just yet, I should just keep it around for now. Okay, now let's see if we can still build stuff. And we can't, that makes sense. Now everywhere that used internal CMD, so all of that needs to move to shared CMD. So internal CMD becomes shared CMD. And that impacts basically that. Yeah. Okay, we can see the IncusOS CMD stuff is failing. That makes sense. That's fine, whatever. But I wanted to make sure that the Incus CLI itself works, and yeah, everything else built just fine. Okay. Update for shared CMD. Just see if there's any change in the imports. There is actually. Alright, and now what we can do is actually move check args and usage and the date layout stuff over to that too, so that we don't need any of the utils. That would be a nice little change here. So let's go and just do that. So we can do args.go, package CMD, and the check args thing that's here can just become a function here. Copy pasted the wrong stuff with me. There we go. Okay. Cool. So we can do that, which can then be consumed by the CLI. I think the CLI probably has it translated, I guess. So if we look for check args, I was actually wondering if it's used elsewhere, and it kind of is. We actually have another version of it in the simple stream stuff here. Okay, yeah, it's kind of used everywhere. I think our best bet here is to return a custom error effectively. So we can do var bad args errors new invalid incorrect number of arguments. So we can do something like that. Okay, let's Let's see if this builds. Yeah, it does. Okay. And then that means that in Incus, it's in main, I think. Check args. Yeah, check args is here. So instead of having the logic, what it can do is just get the boolean. What do we call a boolean usually? I think the boolean is show help. It's basically whether we need to show the help or not, I think. If then args is 0, return. Yeah, that's effectively what it is, I think. Let me see how it's consumed, just to be sure. Oh, it's whether to exit. Okay. So let's do exit and then CLI dot check args. We're using the new function, and then we're passing it the same arguments. So cmd args, min args, max args, and then so basically we want to just catch the error that we expect, the bad args error. And if we get that one, then we can effectively override it with the translated message that we want, like this. And for anything else, we just return things as they are. Okay. Just checking that it builds. It does. Good. Okay, and I think I saw the other user was simple streams that has basically the same thing. Yeah, it does. Oh, it's exported somehow? Yeah, it's here. And this one is not translated, so this one has absolutely no reason to exist. It can just use the CLI one now. So I just need to update those commands to use the CLI thing instead. That will make the code a tiny bit cleaner. I don't know if they already import CLI or not, so I'm going to deal with that later. Okay, already running pretty late in this live stream, so I'm gonna probably sort out the rest of that shared command package, and then we might call it a day. Okay, so simple streams is good now. Incus simple streams, use CLI dot check out. Okay. We can remove those two binaries I built, it's fine. Missing a comment on comment on this one, so that args is returned and of arguments was passed. Okay, so just putting that in place here. Just see if there's more stuff we need to fix in there. There might be. No, cool, nice. So shared cmd add check args. Okay, so that one's good. Now, if we try to build, what is it, this guy, IncusOS cmd admin os. Okay, so now we can import CLI, which is done that way typically. Okay, here we go. So that solved a few things. We're missing all of the querying stuff still. And I said there's more stuff that was in IncusOS cmd utils that I wanted to move. So obviously check args can go away. Usage in the date formats also should have been added over there. So shared cmd usage.go package cmd, and then this one is really trivial, so I'll just move that over like that. Usage formats, the command name and the command and sub command name. Okay. Okay, that should do the trick. Is it happy? Yes. Shared cmd. Okay, which means we can remove this guy from here. Okay, let's build that, see if it's still behaving the same. It does. Now in theory we can do the CLI itself as well. Because if we look here, we're gonna find a whole bunch of those everywhere, basically. So Incus, is it in utils that we have the usage here? Yeah, it is. Okay. So we can drop that. I don't think there was any translation stuff going on there. Nope. Okay, and then basically anywhere where we've got usage like that, it needs to turn into CLI.usage like that. CMD Incus everywhere. I think Incus itself built fine. It's just IncusOS that still doesn't. That's fine. Oops. Anyway, yeah, I think Incus is okay. Let's just try it directly. Yep, we're good. All right, so use CLI usage. Okay, that leaves us with the date format, but I don't actually know that we need them both, and we might actually be able to just swap it from one to the other, basically. What I mean by that is if we look at layout, layout in here, okay, we only need the date layout second, which is this guy. And in the normal Incus CLI, the layout second, I think, is only used by the IncusOS client. Yeah, it is. Okay, so effectively that doesn't need to move to the shared package because it is not shared. It's just only used by this thing. So as soon as the admin OS command goes away from the Incus CLI, that date layout second becomes unused, can go away as well. And then we have it already in the new package. So that's good. So basically done with reshuffling stuff into that new package. I can get back to this guy Apparently I missed some check args stuff. IncusOS CMD admin OS. Okay, 115. Yeah, it's missing that one at least. Yeah, they're all missing. Okay, so check args is CLI check args go. Okay, so that should take out that. And then 126. Okay, so here was our attempt at using do query, which currently doesn't exist. Args, do HTTP, remote, whatever. Okay, so if we do that, we don't need all of the resource stuff anymore. We just need a remote name, so that can go away. And then do query doesn't exist. That's fine. Okay, do HTTP does not exist, so I guess it wasn't. What did I name it? It is named do HTTP. Okay, so why doesn't that work? Do HTTP on args. Oh, it's because it's not quite that simple. It's c.os.args, I think. Yeah, and it's just computing about do query. Good. All right. So that's fine. And then CLI render. And what did it want on this one? Conf.aliases. Why does it need that? Let me check what's in render table. Wow, okay, yeah, this is quite wrong, I think. Like, this is not supposed to be passed like that. It's supposed to be passed the raw data, which would be entries. Okay. All right, so all of the render table calls are wrong, effectively. Let me handle those real quick. So that was a bug already in the existing code base. Just didn't see it because of how it was structured. So that's good now. Now let's do some do query stuff in a bunch of places. So 192. So basically everywhere where we've got raw query, we need to switch to do query, and then we can remove that stuff. So there's a parser here for the application name. Okay, so that might be a slight difficulty. Okay, so we check if there's a remote or not. Okay, so there's gonna need to do some tiny bit amount of parsing. Okay. Because what we basically need is to know if there's like a remote or not. And then the name, the remote and the resource name, effectively. Okay, so remote and resource, we want like a pass remote, and we want to pass args 0 for that. Okay. We require at least one argument, so this case is effectively, the default case was effectively impossible, so that's good. We can get those, it gives us the remote and the resource, so we'll do something like that. And this is then the resource part of this. This should be spelled like that instead. This should be resource, and then do query. Okay, so we're gonna need to implement that pass remote function later too, but problem for later. Do query, pass remote, do query. Okay. Let me just go back to the other existing call to do query, which is up here. And we should also then pass the remote. So this one has 0 or 1. So this one could not have been passed any arguments. So we need to actually do something slightly different. Okay, like this. And the resource will always be empty. In this case, we don't actually care. So we can actually do this to get the remote name. Okay, I think that's fine. And then kind of rinse repeat a bunch of other times. We're basically at an hour and a half through this. I'm gonna wrap it up here. But basically, I'm just gonna keep going with this change. So effectively putting pass remote, do query everywhere throughout this file, and then look at the few other things that are causing issues right now. We've got get study.nfd, text editor, make JSONable that are also showing up. Make JSONable, I think this one was specifically written for this use case. So that's one of those functions will just get moved. Text editor might need to be moved into the comment package. Get study.nfd, I'm not sure what that one is about, but I need to look into it. Effectively, just keep going until this package builds. And then once it does, rip out the code from the current command. So that's the command incus admin OS command, this guy. So effectively edit this, like basically remove it, make it import the new package, make it call the initialization command, and then have it return effectively the CLI. And once we've got that in place and it works within the Incus codebase, then I'll move the new IncusOS command package over to the IncusOS codebase itself, push that upstream, and then once we've got a tag for it, we can then update Incus to import it from the other repo, and from that point on, we can modify the IncusOS CLI without having to touch the Incus codebase at all. So that's kind of the goal. Not too much needed. I think probably another hour or so, and I'll be done going through this and be able to start pushing that code. All right, hopefully that wasn't too boring. I know a lot of the stream was literally watch me refactoring code. That's basically all that happened. But hopefully you understand the concept and why I'm doing this. And I think we're gonna end up with a much tighter kind of implementation of the CLI that can be consumed by any application running on top of IncusOS. And will give us kind of more control on the IncusOS side. So whenever we add a new API, we can also add the CLI that goes with it and not have to like start contributing to 3 different projects every time we want to do that. And that will also give us like a good foundation to do some more refactoring, to remove some of the code duplication we have right now, and those list, edit, show kind of standard-ish, copy-paste-ish type commands, cleaning that up to have like a shared code base on those, and then add all of the actions. So yeah, shutdown, reboot, all of those things that we really want to add to the CLI. As right now, it's a bit weird to interact with those since we need to do them directly through like a raw API query. Anyways, that's going to be it for today. Hopefully that was still interesting. If you've got any questions around any of this work, feel free to leave them down below. Otherwise, next week is another IncusOS live stream, I think. We're not at Incus release time quite yet. So we'll see where we're at. This will definitely have been done by next week, and we'll see what else we have kind of pending. As I mentioned last week, I'm also working on recording like a longer kind of intro video to the entire Future Fusion stack. So that's going to show a bunch of Incus and IncusOS, but also kind of integration with Operation Center, Migration Manager, kind of similar to what I showed in last week's live stream, but a bit more in depth and a bit more of an overview of the entire solution rather than just like a technical talk. Anyways, on that, I'm going to leave you. Have a great rest of the week and weekend, and I'll see you in the next one.